Hey everybody, today we're going to be working on some Santa-inspired Space Marines. Just came up with this idea off the top of my head and just want to do a quick tutorial about how to sculpt beards and Santa caps in case you want to make some festive models this holiday season. So the first thing we're going to talk about is mixing your green stuff. The first thing you want to do is you're going to want to cut into the green stuff and have two equal parts, both the A and B. Green, blue, whatever. And then you're going to knead them together and you want to have a consistent rich green color. You don't want to have any random chunks of yellow or blue in there. You want it to be all consistent bright green color. When I'm mixing green stuff, one of the first things I do is I try to keep in mind of how much I'm actually going to be using for this project. You don't want to mix too much because the longer it's out, the harder it is to work with. I say about 30 minutes it becomes more difficult to sculpt and it becomes less sticky, making it more annoying for you to use for your particular sculpting project. So it's easier just to make a smaller batch and then make a little bit more as you need it instead of fiddling around with dry green stuff. So when sculpting hair, beards, fur, capes with green stuff, the first step you're going to do is you're going to make sure it's thoroughly blended, but then you're going to pull the green stuff flat, and then you're going to lay the initial point of contact on the model where you'd like it to begin, and then you're going to pull the remainder, gently of course, where you would like it to go. So in the example of a beard, I first press the green stuff on the model's face, and then I pull the remainder of the green stuff over the neck, over the armor, down the chest, to where I'd like it to ultimately go. I lay the green stuff out in the proximate area, and this may change depending on how sculpting goes. You may have to make a couple adjustments, but you just want to get that rough positioning done before you actually start sculpting. After you've positioned the beard or the hair or the fur in the direction that you want it to go, is start pressing in on key points of contact on the model. This is just to create a little bit more of a bond and allow the sticky nature of the grain stuff to adhere to the plastic. And then with a sharp tipped tool, I in this case use an X-Acto knife, I start at the top of where I'd like the hair to go and make short, straight lines mimicking the texture in the hair. They don't have to be straight, they could be wavy, or you could do curl patterns depending on what type of look you're also trying to go. But you're trying to mimic the flow of the hair in the direction that you're trying to go. And you're trying to make multiple small passes that build up on each other that go throughout the length of the hair that you're trying to sculpt. It doesn't have to be the same direction. If you want someone with a part in their hair or you want it to be more wild, you could do multiple different directions. But in the case of this beard, I went with the same general direction, starting from the mouth and working my way down along the model. Sometimes you're going to make a mistake. Throughout this project, I accidentally used my finger and smushed part of the hair, or I took a little bit too much off the beard, or I didn't have quite enough of green stuff to do the effect that I was trying to do. So it's always easy to just restart. If you decide to restart, just take it all off and try again. There's nothing wrong. Practice makes perfect. If it's a smaller mistake, one of the tips that I recommend is using a soft tipped device and using a little bit of water and just smoothing out any fingerprints or any defects in where you were sculpting. If you don't have enough green stuff because maybe you made a little bit less, you can always add on a little bit more. This also allows to provide the hair or the fur a little bit more depth. And if you accidentally have a little bit too much, you can always take some out. Just use the sharp end of an X-Acto blade, cut off the excess, or you can pull it off with like a dental tool as well. One of the steps that I strongly recommend, but I actually didn't do during the course of this video, is taking your time to letting the green stuff cure a little bit. As you'll see later in this video, I began working on the hat shortly after finishing the beard, and then because I have fat fingers, I accidentally push down on the green stuff and make it a little bit of a mess, and vice versa on the hat. So give yourself a little bit of time for the green stuff to cure. I would say 30-40 minutes. Once you're satisfied with the way you want the initial green stuff layer to go down and you're satisfied with the way it looks, let it cure, let it dry. There's no rush. Work on something else and then come back to it, and then you could do the next steps. But if you're impatient like me, you can practice sculpting multiple times because you decided to rush it and accidentally put your finger in the work that you were very proudly done. So the next step is, now that we're satisfied with our beard, we're going to work on making a hat. So the first step that is, I took a small piece of armature wire or brass, and I just cut it to a short length, approximately the length of which I wanted the hat to be. The purpose of this wire is to provide a little bit more strength into the hat, allow you to position it a little bit easier, and it also allows you to attach the pom-pom onto the end and giving it enough support so it can actually stick onto the model. After you have your piece of armature wire, we're going to take a little bit of green stuff and we're going to roll around the wire in a cone shape. The larger diameter, flatter bottom of the cone is going to be where it ultimately lays on the model's head, and the tip is going to be a little bit of exposed wire because, like I said, we're going to stick that pom-pom on the end. Once you have the rough general shape of the cone along with the wire, we're going to place that shape on the model's head, and then we're going to position the hat based on what kind of look we're going for. I would suggest having the model fully constructed, and then you can have gravity, carrying the hat how it naturally would flow. Now, if you want something not natural, like it's sticking point straight up like a gnome, that's okay too. It's your project, it's your preference. So I positioned the cone-shaped hat, and then I folded it over on itself, and I made it so it looks like it's right over his shoulder on his backpack. Now that we have the general shape of how we want Santa's hat to look like, we're going to press in around his head where the differentiation will be between the fuzzy rim of the hat and the red fluff. You don't want to give too much space, but you want to make it appropriately sized based on the model that you're working with. For this step, I did refer to a little bit of Christmas artwork about how Santa's hat laid on the model to help me figure out how much material I needed to put in or how much detail I needed to do in order to make it look realistic. Once the hat is positioned on the model using a sculpting tool, we're going to press where the differentiation is between the fuzzy rim and the red fluff, and we're going to you want there to be a clear differentiation between the fuzziness and the red rim, and then the fuzziness will be textured just like you would do a beard, fur, or hair, that kind of, and we do that same furry texture approach, making multiple stabs, and we just want to make sure the entirety of the pom-pom has a little bit of texture on it. Not too much, just a little bit, just to make it interesting to paint and visually appealing. While making this hat for this project, I accidentally went a little overboard and I added a little bit too much water. So when you're using water, I strongly suggest just use a little bit, make sure it fully dries afterwards, and then you won't have the green stuff popping off. If you accidentally have too much green stuff like I did on this project, once again, you could just take an X-Acto knife, you can cut it off, and then you have extra material to work with. It's easier to add material to the green stuff than it is to take it away. Alright, so hopefully this quick guide was enough to help you begin sculpting. Just a couple quick things. One, make sure you take your time. There's no rush. You have about 30 to 45 minutes to work with green stuff before it becomes more difficult to use. And even if it's more difficult, it's still pliable. It's just more challenging. Two, don't be afraid to just restart. Believe it or not, there's plenty of times when I'm sculpting flames, hair, beards, fur, whatever, and I have to restart because I just don't like the way it looks, and then I do it again and it looks way better. So just take your time, practice, and I strongly recommend letting the green stuff dry before starting the next project. You don't want to accidentally smash with your finger the work that you've done on your model while trying to rush to get the next part done. Thank you for watching this tutorial on how to sculpt holiday festive features on your favorite Warhammer 40k models. If you found this video helpful and you want to see more, be sure to comment below. If you have any additional tips or tricks on how you sculpt using green stuff, I would love to know. Let me know. Maybe I'll do a video on it in the future. Once again, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Bye. Just lick your bottle.
So you cannot lick doorknob, because otherwise that's how you catch COVID. But you should lick your models.
Yeah.
Okay.